Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires to talk about the Empire and how to make them more playable. Now, this video is more so aimed at Karl Franz and Balthazar Guild, though there's certainly going to be benefits for both Marcus Wolfart and Volkmar. There are mods that do help Volkmar and Marcus Wolfart specifically, especially Volkmar. For instance, there's a mod that changes the Books of Nagash locations for Volkmar, so he doesn't have to go all the way to Ulthuan to beat up Safri just to get one of the Books of Nagash, or more likely Tyrion, really, at that particular point, or Alariel, which is a really bad idea even in the best case circumstance. Picking a fight with Ulthuan is not something you do casually for a damned book, suffice to say. So there's a lot of issues. The biggest issues, however, are with regards to the Imperial Authority system that Karl Franz and Guild have to deal with. The problem with Imperial Authority is that it's very easy to lose it, harder to gain it, unless you cheese it. And a fundamental problem in Warhammer 3 about an event-based campaign, or a campaign that's very slow, where you gain territory very slowly because you have to wait to get fealty to 10 with each electric count, and then you have to spend a lot of Imperial Authority to confederate them, or you go in the negative. The problem with that asinine system is that it just doesn't flat out work. The reason it doesn't work is that you end up in a situation where, let's say you're playing Karl Franz campaign, you have to defend all of this with this. There's harsh campaigns, there's annoying campaigns. This is, however, asinine. It's a really bad campaign design when you have to deal with all of this with very limited resources. It kind of made sense in Warhammer 2 because, believe it or not, the AI was actually more passive in Warhammer 2. At least the electric counts would survive more. I mean, some of them could still die against certain factions, but it wasn't the same miserable experience as it is right now. So that is a major issue. And it creates the problem where you can't really gain territory or provinces, crucially, unless you're willing to pay a hefty Imperial Authority cost. Which leads to the situation where the best way to play an Imperial campaign is to go declare war on Nuln, sack Wissenberg, take it over, sell it to Averheim or Geld, wait for the event to come up, force them to give it back, and gain one Imperial Authority. And go do this for like 30 turns of your campaign. It's the best way to do it. Is it the cheese? Yes. The system is just flat broken. It is not a good system. Enter your new Empire overhaul. What the overhaul does, it creates a bunch of events that do grant you Imperial Authority. It gives you vision. If you're playing Karl Franz, for instance, it gives you vision on both Marcus Wolfart and Volkmar from the very beginning of your campaign. It also gives you full diplomatic access, well, minus confederations, dependent on your fealty level. So beforehand, getting anything more, or you can get anything more than military access in a trade agreement with the electric counts because of the limitations of Imperial Authority. Now you can get those, but it depends on your level of fealty. So you need to have a high level of fealty to have those diplomatic options, which does grant you more choices in your campaign. So, for instance, over here, I have an alliance, a military alliance, with Norland, as an example. I have a defensive alliance with Halabiam. And the benefit of this isn't just the fact that you have a military alliance and thus your armies outside of Karl Franz can replenish. It's not just that, but by having those kind of alliances, it's also the ability of coordinating, getting allied missions, requesting armies, potentially, in a war to use. So it's more resources, it's more options to deal with all of the threats. You still have the problem with the system, though, even with the mod, is it's just inherently a bad system. It's a bad system because it prevents you from taking a lot of territory that you need. factions that are powerful. It also doesn't make sense in the sandbox. You can't... having an event-based campaign or campaign based on that system just doesn't flat out work within the context of something like Warhammer 3. Because let's say, for instance, you have an event with a mod that gives you the ability of either declaring war on Marienburg in 25 turns or not doing so. But it doesn't matter anyway, because in this campaign on Legendary, Kemmler just outright conquer Marienburg, so this event is meaningless. This is the reason why events, like having events and having systems like Imperial Authority, and I'm not talking about the mod here, but I'm talking how it works like by default, why just such systems just flat out don't work. The reason this mod works better than the base game is because it gives you more choices, it gives you better ways of earning Imperial Authority, gives you various benefits. You can recall the expedition, for instance, for Marcus Wolfhard and get him as a legendary lord, or you can support his expedition and get the income from sacking lizardman settlements for all that worth. But all the same, you do have various choices that you didn't have by default. But the system inherently is still awful. Just going to point that out there. Now, it is also easier to gain Imperial Authority because you don't just get, like, if you, let's say, for instance, Marienburg in this campaign lost Carburg and Weismund to Beastmen and Greenskins, respectively. Well, when you give them the Electron Count, those settlements back, you don't just gain fealty with them, you gain Imperial Authority. So you have a reason to play within the system. The system, as I said, stated, is still a really bad system in virtually every way that counts, but you do have more options, you do have benefits from having a high Imperial Authority, though what's kind of annoying is they limited the Imperial Authority to 15 as opposed to what it was in the base game, so you can't just hoard it. I do dislike it when mod creators decide, yeah, we don't want to make it too easy, quote unquote, so we're just going to implement those kind of limits. Another change that's made with the mod is the way that you gain Elector Count State Troopers. There is a chance every turn that you'll get those units added to the pool. Now, it depends on which Elector Counts you control, and you need to maintain control of those seats. So for instance here, I gave Hockland back, I gave the capital of Osland back, so I can't recruit those state troopers. I did when I controlled them, but when I gave them back. I kept the items to be sure about it, but I did lose the ability of getting those troopers back. There's also more options when you get to 10 fealty. Also, another mod to use is the Warband Upgrade mod. Allows you to, let's say, upgrade crossbowmen into huntsmen, or take archers, start with archers, go to crossbowmen, go into huntsmen. Or start with archers, get into crossbowmen, switch to spearmen, and then go to greatsword. So it's a really good mod, especially when you have to traverse the world. I think what Karl Franz would need would be like some kind of horde army to all of his armies, or the ability of recruiting in Imperial territory in general. Because not being able to do so creates a very messy situation. I also think that the entire system of Imperial Authority should be burned to the ground, but that's my perspective. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.